We're doing this to hear stories of resilience, honesty, and obviously transformation. And in the hope that it'll inspire and bring some kind of connection and break the silence on the mental health issues that happen in the expat world. And today's guest is someone who's walked a very deep personal challenge and navigated at the same time life abroad and recovering from an eating disorder. And as an expat, her story is a powerful reminder that recovery is possible and no one is alone in their struggle. And today, as always with Share Your Stories, we really hope to raise awareness, not just about eating disorders, but also breaking the stigma, which is super important for us, and sharing real experiences as well. So what I wanted to do first is just start with a definition of what eating disorders are. And the National Eating Disorders Association defined eating disorders as a serious health condition that affects both physical and mental health. They include problems in how individuals think about food, eating, weight and shape, as well as their eating behaviours. And these disorders can impact health, emotion and daily functioning, but they are treatable mental and physical illnesses that can affect people of all genders, ages and background. What I found in looking for this definition, what was most alarming to me was the fact that the global population affected by eating disorders has more than doubled from 2000 to 2020. And yes, you can attribute this to, more awareness, therefore more reporting, but it's also to do with COVID and definitely social media. And what was even more astonishing, and I can see this, raising 3 boys, and I was talking to Naya a little bit about it earlier, that what was really more astonishing is that the National Eating Disorders Organisation highlighted that despite the stereotype that eating disorders only occur in women, about 1 in 3 people struggling with an eating disorder is male. And disordered eating behaviours are nearly as common among men as they are among women. It's such an alarming statistic. So welcome, Naya. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming in and bravely being able to share your journey and your story with us. Kat and I are so truly grateful.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Every sort of share your story that we've been lucky enough to receive, it does humble us because both of us are in the mental health space where it's such a generous thing to do to be able to try and help others with something that's been like a real struggle for you. And I know we were just talking a little bit before we started recording, and we were talking about how still these things are very close to the surface. And I was sharing about my anxiety and you were sharing about you're still working through an eating disorder. It never completely vanishes, for example, but you're still willing to be here and to try and raise awareness and help others who might be experiencing something similar, and helping someone else that is a loved one that also might be struggling. And both Von and I are just acknowledging right from the outset that even though we are in the mental health space, I still am so sensitive to this topic because I feel like it's such a specialty. It's such a really important area that is misunderstood a lot of the time. And a lot of the time people just think, it's nutrition. It's not about the food. It's not just about the food. I'm sure someone with an eating disorder knows what to eat. I don't think that's the issue. It's a lot more complex than that. And certainly anyone that I've worked with, and obviously had to refer out because it's not my specialty. There's just such a pervasive sense of it's so misunderstood and so personal and unique to the person. It's almost a disorder that is like each person needs a completely different treatment plan because it's unique to that person and triggers that are associated with that person. So you being able to share this, I'm sure, will help a lot of people. And I don't want to put it in your, we want you to put it in your own words. So can you tell us a little bit how you first noticed it, what led to it, initially were you resistant to the idea that's what was happening? Like, how did you understand that this is what you were struggling with?
So the whole sort of journey around food and stuff, it did start when I was still in secondary school. I think most girls will go through wanting to look perfect or whatever. But then the whole sort of serious eating disorder started last year. In around February, I started my first work block in nursing school. And in those first, I think maybe month or something, I had experienced a lot of situations that I wasn't used to, with patient deaths and things like that. And I almost didn't know how to deal with that, and being away from home added to that. And in that time, I liked the control of, if I eat less, then I'll lose weight and maybe I can achieve something like that. And also for me, sport was a massive thing. And so every time I had a bad day of work, I'd go out and run. And so I associated all of that with negative emotions. And I think when we noticed that it was really serious was in June last year, when I came home after another school block away and I had lost a significant amount of weight. And my parents, I remember distinctly sitting at the kitchen table with my dad, and he just looked at me and he said, "You need to eat." And my first reaction was just anger and I guess denial. I didn't see myself as sick at all, and I could see the number on the scale that I was underweight, but when I looked in the mirror, I was just a normal girl.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely a significant point. And then I returned to Switzerland and I went back to my school block, and then they spoke to me about it at the hospital. And they essentially said, "We know what's going on. Now we just want you to tell us what's going on." And that was quite scary when I had that meeting with her. And I realized they know what's going on. And we sat down and they were really supportive, and I'm so grateful for that. But it was hard realizing that people can see it. Like, you're not hiding it. And for me, it was always like nobody notices it and stuff. And people just, they don't mention it because you don't comment on other people's body. You're not supposed to do that. And so that they did was scary and eye-opening,
Yeah. Okay, there's so many things you said. And I think the fact that, like, you can link it to, so you're doing, was it which year of nursing school? Like your
The first year.
first year, you're traveling away from your family, you're living abroad, you're in an incredibly stressful, a wonderful, rewarding profession, but incredibly taxing, I can imagine, and a lot of firsts. Supporting people in that situation is triggering at the best of times, let alone first year out. So I can imagine that you were just at capacity in terms of what you could take on. And it's also these really, I'm sure it's like very innocent and it sounds healthy, right? I'm going to run through my feelings. That is something we suggest to people if you've got anxiety. You've got to exercise. Yeah. And it starts out as a positive thing, but then it can just in a small way, turn into something quite extreme.
Yeah, very.
And the same with the eating. It's, okay, I'll just eat healthily and again, great. But then at some point, just it goes too far. Did you, when your dad said that, there was a big gap of him not seeing you and then he's seen you and maybe got a shock? Was that kind of what it
That
felt?
was what it was, yeah. And in that time, it definitely did spiral. And so I think that's when they really picked up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they had never said anything before because you don't usually comment on that. But I think they were pretty concerned at that point.
And tell me, Naya, when the school brought it up with you, did you feel almost a relief? Somewhere?
A little bit.
Or was it, I'm actually angry again and I'm not going to have this conversation? Was there any resistance there? Or I think that this is the biggest takeaway, that not someone that's struggling with an eating disorder, but someone that might know someone with an eating disorder from like a teacher point of view.
Yeah, I'm thinking the school system.
A school system,
Yeah.
a friend,
Yeah.
most importantly, a parent. What is it that could have got us or could get us to say, is it just to confront? Because that's very confronting, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to speak on it, but I think you need to be aware that you will probably be met with anger or denial. And I think that's how I reacted with both of my parents.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think I was in any way grateful to them. I am now, and I think that in a few years I will be even more grateful that they brought it up. But at the time it was like, no, I'm not. And also internally it was almost like, oh gosh, now somebody knows and now I'll have to change and now I'll have to change my habits and stuff. And in the hospital, I think it was more a fear of what's going to happen to my training. Am I going to get kicked out? And on that day where they spoke to me about it, we actually decided to drop me down to working 50%. So I was only working half days. And that to me was, you failed. Can't work 100% anymore. They think you're too weak for that. So I think there it was more fear, whereas with my parents, it was definitely anger.
I'm so glad you're honest about it because having worked a lot in a lot of schools, and we of course see these young people every single day and we notice like changes, and some of it is very normal, right? They're growing and they're active. Like some of it is completely innocent and fine. Others, maybe it starts okay, but then we get really worried and we have to have an intervention almost. And I can't think of one time where it's been a smooth conversation. Okay. And over 20 years, like it's happened a number of times and it's always in my memory been met with a lot of resistance, a lot of denial. And I'm wondering, and then almost as the person's guiding the parents to the next steps and so on, you almost second guess yourself. It's like there's so much resistance to it. It's like, okay, maybe we're wrong. I don't know. I'm not there managing it. But from our observations, this is what we've seen. So can you talk a little bit to the denial part of it? Like that we're observing this and I think sometimes they're offended or they feel judged, and obviously it's not. It's coming from a place of love and care, but something happens there with the person that's struggling with it and the people that love them and are trying to support them. What is it about this disorder that sometimes it is like you're in denial about it?
I think the biggest part for me was definitely the body dysmorphia aspect of it. I looked in the mirror and I was too big. And I could see on the scale, I'm a very numbers driven person, so I could see on the scale, you are underweight, you are unhealthy and stuff. But in the mirror, I didn't look unhealthy. And so when everyone kept telling me you look unhealthy, but I still felt like I needed to keep losing weight, it was almost like stop telling me that I need to stop with this. So I think that's where my sort of denial came in. And I think what helps there is to just keep talking about it. I think I still sometimes am in denial. I'm still in treatment. I'm still not in a physically very healthy place and stuff. And so I am still in denial. But I think that the more people say, look, you aren't too big, like you are still unhealthy, I think it drives it into your brain as well.
Because for me, that would probably be the worst thing that I would think that I should say. That
to keep bringing it up?
Keep bringing it up, that you are not looking healthy, that you are, you need
we would
to,
never say that. I would never. I still could not say that.
But what you're actually saying is the opposite. That's probably something that's very misunderstood, that we should keep for you in particular. And I know that this experience, your experience is very different to every other experience.
For sure.
And noting that and being respectful of that. But for you in particular, that was something that was helpful.
I think it almost triggered me more when I did start, because obviously initially it was you need to gain weight.
Right.
Because I was at a point last year in sort of October and stuff where my weight had dropped so much that there was a risk of me having to go inpatient. And so the first thing was start gaining weight. And I had people start saying, you're looking healthier, you're looking happier. And to me, that was more triggering than people telling me I was unhealthy. Sounds so backwards.
I know.
But it's part of the disorder.
It's so true.
I get it. Okay.
Can I say there's one thing that, like, the body dysmorphia is such a thing. And the way that we've experimented, like, in a session where a young person, and maybe they're not struggling with an eating disorder per se, but they just perceive themselves, not how we're looking at them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to draw you, okay? This is you. Now, this is what you look like to me. Like a very, like, not stick drawing, but very crude drawing, pretty smile, whatever. And then I'm like, now you draw how you feel. And then they're drawing these like big arms and they're drawing how they feel they carry their weight or how they, and I'm like, that's how, and it's very dysmorphic. Like it's not at all reflective of, but it's like, you just have to tell them that's how you feel. That's not how you look. It's not how you look. So it is interesting because that's the denial piece. I don't look in the mirror and I don't see what, and just in terms of everyday life, like if we had a friend and we were worried about this, like, I would be mortified before I would ever say that you look unhealthy, or for fear that they might say back to me, you look too fat.
What's the saddest part?
What?
But we would probably be more inclined to discuss them being overweight
Yeah.
versus underweight. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit, just because you were an expat, you are an expat, not were, living abroad, and what were the differences between recovery and having an eating disorder in Dubai compared to Switzerland?
Yes.
Were there differences?
When I was in Dubai, I wasn't in very intense treatment or anything at all at any point. So I can only really speak on the little bits that I had experienced. From what I did experience, it's still very stigmatized, and trying to get help here is a lot harder, or people wait a lot longer.
Yeah.
Whereas in Switzerland, it all started when I went to my doctor, and he immediately referred me to a psychologist, and he noticed immediately. And in Switzerland, the social system also helps a lot. So me, with my working 50% and stuff, a lot of people would have financial concerns, and thankfully the social system in Switzerland supports that. At the end of the day, I'm getting the support that I need. And and I think that down here, from what I did experience, it's just still that step harder, which when you're already struggling, sometimes you don't have the energy to navigate that as well.
Yeah. When I was doing a little bit of research, I was trying to find some kind of association that deals with eating disorder. When it comes to this region, then it's called MEAD. They had a wealth of information, and they have a podcast, and they are dedicated to providing awareness and support for people in this region struggling with eating disorders.
Definitely include that. Because speaking from within the mental health space, I think in Australia, like we talked about, it's a multidisciplinary team that has to manage it. Even as a psychologist, it wouldn't just be one person that would manage that. So with your recovery, is it just one? Is it your psychologist? What are the different parts that work together to help you?
So I'm in treatment with a psychologist regularly, at the minute, like weekly, on a weekly basis, and with a dietitian that specializes in eating disorders as well. And then obviously just a general doctor to deal with. Because at the start, that was also a massive thing. You go do a blood test and stuff, and you just see red popping up everywhere. So it's also about being medically stable. And obviously there's always risk as well with being underweight and then very quickly gaining weight. I'm not an expert on this, but things like refeeding syndrome and stuff, where it's super important to also have that medical support.
Absolutely.
And so I'm very grateful that I have all the aspects and stuff and all the different perspectives on the disorder.
That's the key thing, that it's not, it is a team really, because it's the medical side, the sort of thinking piece. And I guess and you're so young as well, and I just want to ask you, because obviously you have teenagers, I work a lot with teenagers, and just the whole social media piece, self-image. I have a 7-year-old boy, and he goes to me, he was watching Ronaldo, he goes, "How do I get abs Ronaldo?" I'm like, "What? You're 7?" I'm like, "And what are you asking me for?" As if I know how to get abs. So it starts very innocently. The images of Ronaldo are just like bombarding us. And in our house, I have 3 boys. You have 3 boys. Even in boys, they're having this sort of fixation with what's perfect. It's extreme. So I'm interested in your view on how social media can feed into this. Did you feel like it contributed to anything in your own journey, or can you just observe that how it might play into someone else that might be struggling with it?
I think it definitely can have a massive negative impact. I think in my case, a lot of my eating disorder was around control at the end. So I think that it played less into mine. But I'm noticing now, going through the recovery journey, that it can also have a very positive impact.
Okay.
You can completely structure your page on Instagram and stuff to show you the things that you want to see. And so I'm getting mine to show me the recovery motivation, or the things of people showing you what a real body looks like and stuff like that. And I think that if you take it upon yourself to create a page that's helpful for you, then it can be really great. But it's so risky, because you never know what actually is going on in the background of these pictures and stuff that people are posting. And so I think you have to also look at it with a critical.
That's
Yeah.
the word. And I love how you said, to curate a page that reflects like is healthy and what is productive. But I think sometimes the algorithm, I don't know how it all works, but even if I don't want to see something, sometimes stuff pops up is triggering, whether it's to do with body image or whatever it is. So I do worry with a young person that's already a little bit vulnerable and sensitive to it, that they go down a rabbit hole of that. And it's that critical piece, but it's also developmentally, they're not as reliable in filtering what they're saying, and a 7-year-old wanting abs.
Yeah, because there's a lot of that on Instagram, not just Instagram, but TikTok as well. Like all these, what do I eat in a day?
Yeah.
And especially like we were just mentioning, the boys, six packs are in, muscles are in, hair is in.
Yeah.
And they're definitely looking at these things. And I see it with my boys.
Yeah.
There is a certain particular way that they want to look in society. They are.
Bombarded with it.
So yeah. Social media impact. But I love that about curating your own page. That's what it should be used. You should be using Instagram and social
Intentionally.
media intentionally
Yeah.
and critically going, this
Yeah.
doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah.
But then to know what doesn't serve you and what serves you at a particular age, like you said.
Self-awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I follow all these because I'm like getting older, whatever. Intentionally follow like 50-year-old women and
Same.
just because I love their fashion. And I'm just like, that's more attainable for me right now. That's the season of life. Why do I want to feel miserable looking at gorgeous 20-year-olds?
Yeah. I wanted to ask, what's the biggest misconception about eating disorders? What are some things that you can tell us that is just so not true? And I get quite annoyed that I hear it all the time or anything like that, because there is so many.
There's a lot, yeah. I think the one that I find is, I think there's two that I find is most important. The first one is people thinking it's attention seeking. I think anybody that has ever gone through an eating disorder would never, ever choose that, because it harms every part of you, your physical health, mental health, social life and stuff. So I think that's the first one. And then I think the second one is it's not all about food. And like, I can say I'm very much a foodie, but sometimes my mind will just take over. And so people who tell you to just eat a burger, and that frustrates me because there's so much going on behind that people don't see. And yes, I might have had a pizza with you the other night, but you don't know what went on in my head after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not about the food.
Yeah.
It's
what
not.
comes
I know.
after,
I know.
before, and yeah.
I know. Yep. It's a really hard thing to think about, because there's just so much thought around just doing something normal, like eating a normal meal, and it's not that simple. If it was that simple, I would just do that, obviously.
I just wouldn't think those thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly. We'd all be out of jobs.
We'd all be so much happier if we could just switch the light on and
Just
off.
don't be anxious. And if there's a really important takeaway for our listeners, whether they're worried about their child or their friend or anyone, like, what advice could you give them?
I think we spoke about this a little bit before, and so I think my takeaway will be for parents or people around people suffering with eating disorders. And I think the most important thing there is it's not your fault.
So good.
Because I think a lot of people, and I could only assume that my parents feel this way as well, a lot of people put the blame on themselves. They think, was it that one thing that I said? Was it that one thing that I did? Did I push my child too hard or whatever? But at the end of the day, no one thing will cause an eating disorder. For me, it was so multifactorial. And at the end of the day, it's a mental illness. It's not like a broken arm that if you twist someone's arm too much, you break it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is don't put the blame on yourself.
It's so incredibly
And so
beautiful.
comforting.
Yeah, and comforting, and the truth. Like, that is the truth. That is what parents would think, but it's also completely, as you said, life is too complex and rich, and it's not ever one thing that gets to that point. So if you could just tell us a little bit and you were talking earlier before we started recording, just about what are the positives that have come out of this, out of the journey or out of the growth or whatever. What is it? Have any beautiful things come about because of this struggle?
I think one of the biggest things is the support that I received from everywhere. My parents I'm seeing them in a completely new. My parents were always very supportive, but in a completely new way now. And also just seeing how incredible my workplace has been in Switzerland. I would never, ever have expected the support that I got from them.
Yeah.
And also just friendships. I think an eating disorder can definitely ruin friendships, and they have for me, but they've also strengthened other relationships, and you can have conversations that you never would have had before. So I think it would have been nice had it not come with all the other sides of the eating disorder, but that definitely is a massive thing, yeah.
And what have you learnt about yourself?
A lot. Yeah. I think your mind is so strong, sometimes in the wrong way. I had a very strong will, and for a long time that was lose weight, do more exercise. But your mind can do so much, and I think that if you train it almost in the right way, you can achieve anything. And so I think that once I get past kind of this mental block of trying to recover, I think that after that, life will be so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
love that.
I
Honestly.
love
'Cause it
you.
is.
Honestly,
It's what-
you're like incredible.
It's the message that, you know, in the mental health space say all the time. Your mind is so powerful, and that if you can train it, like they're just it's an amazing muscle, like, you know, now, because you've seen incrementally the changes over time over where you were 2 years ago versus where you are today. Growth.
Yeah. But we both feel so privileged to have you here, but also such an articulate young woman.
And so composed.
And so self-aware. Like,
Exactly.
your level of self-awareness is like off the Richter scale to be able to talk about something so deeply personal, so still working through it, and to be able to speak to it in such a beautiful way. I'm like fully humbled, like, really. Thank you, Nai. Thank you. Thank you so much, really.
I must say, a lot of I don't see myself as very articulate, but I think a lot of that probably comes from my parents. And I think that the conversations that we've had over this past year, some have been a little more heated than others. But I think on the whole, they've given me so much on this journey. And my parents are the ones that always said, your mind is what's keeping you back, and your mind is so strong. So yeah, my parents played a big role in it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.